listening to the Today's Mama podcast with your host, Rachel Hersher.
I'm back from summer vacation to bring you an interview with the amazing Bethany Hamilton. I thought I'd take the whole summer off and start season 2 in September, I don't know, maybe October, but I couldn't pass on this opportunity to chat with Bethany. So here we are in the heat of July, talking surfing, fear, faith, motherhood, and her new movie, Unstoppable. It's got one more week in the theaters. I screened it this weekend and it's worth seeing on the big screen. So grab your whole family and go check it out. It was jaw-dropping, awe-inspiring, and Bethany is just the kind of role model that we all need. In the unlikely event that you don't know who Bethany Hamilton is, let me fill you in. Bethany has become a source of inspiration to millions through her story of determination, faith, and hope. At 13, Bethany lost her left arm to a 14-foot tiger shark, which seemed to end her career as a rising surf star. Just 1 month after the attack, Bethany returned to the water and within just 2 years had won her first national title. Bethany's latest project, Unstoppable, is a surf documentary which will showcase her as one of the best female surfers in the world. And it's in theaters now. Enjoy this episode. This one is definitely going to be on my kids' required listening list. Okay, welcome to the podcast, Bethany Hamilton.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I have been pinching myself. I woke up today like it's Christmas. So I'm so excited. And I know you're joining us like from the Midwest where there's no oceans to be found.
No ocean. So I'm a little out of my comfort zone. But I actually love coming here because this is where my husband is from and his whole family. So we're spending a few days out here with his family.
And you're in like Nebraska?
Yeah, we're in the middle of farmland, so there's corn surrounding me.
Which cannot be surfed. So do you feel just a tiny bit twitchy?
I definitely get after 3 days, I'm like, okay, I need some water time. But we came from Texas where I was surfing in a man-made wave pool where it's actually really incredible waves. So I surfed my brains out. I was so tired and needed a break from surfing. I was that tired. So we came here and it's perfect timing to just get a little rest in before we move on to our next destination, which is Southern California, where I'll be competing in 2 professional surf contests.
Amazing. So that's good. It's almost like vitamin dosing, right? Like you got your fill before, you're good to go for a few days.
Yeah.
It'll get you through the cornfield.
And it's funny because sometimes it's good to have a few days off from surfing because it just makes you really hungry for it and kind of gives your body a break and your mind a break. And then when you get back in, it's just okay, yes, this is amazing.
Well, and so you mentioned, this is something that I had not realized, is that you have been professionally competing for years now. And so you're headed to another competition. What's that circuit like? It sounds like you've got one in the next few days. How often are you competing?
Yeah, so since I had my second son, Wesley, who is now a year and 4 months about, I haven't done as many contests. I've done a few. And yeah, I don't know. I kind of just got the competition bug and I checked the schedule and saw a couple events that worked out really nicely with my schedule. So I connected with the organizers and said, hey, I'd love to compete in these upcoming events. Would that be possible? Because typically you need to have a rank to be able to compete in certain events, but they always have a couple of wild card spots allocated for the different events. So I'll be competing as a wild card. And so there will be about 100 or 150 girls in these events. And yeah, so I'm just really excited. I definitely got the bug to just get a jersey on. And I've been surfing a lot this last year. It's not like I haven't been surfing. I just haven't been putting the jersey on. I'm continually pushing myself, but in just not the jersey form.
Well, we're going to jump right in and talk about your film Unstoppable, because that jumps into a lot of competitive stuff that, again, I had no idea was going on. It's not only that you've been competing, but you've actually been killing it in a lot of ways. So I watched the film this weekend. I constantly found myself shaking my head in awe and disbelief, and basically ended the film welled up with tears. So it's not
Aw.
only so beautifully done, but there is so much more to your story since Soul Surfer, right? Like the movie that we've been watching with our kids for years now. So getting back in the water and learning to surf again with one arm was just the beginning of the story. And this movie, Unstoppable, I feel like it takes us through the rest of what's going on, and it absolutely blew my mind. So that was a really long intro to this question. Can you give us a good summary of the challenges or what you've been up to and what you've taken on that we're going to see in this film?
Yeah, so Unstoppable kind of takes everyone along the journey it goes all the way from childhood until motherhood, and especially my surfing journey. And the heart behind the film started as a short film we were going to make, just highlighting my surfing ability. I had connected with the filmmaker Aaron Lieber on another trip he was doing with my friend Lakey Peterson on her surf film called 0 to 100. And he's like, oh my gosh, your surfing is good, if not better, than Lakey, and you're, one of the top female surfers in the world, but yet nobody knows it.
Exactly.
So he determined that he wanted to share that aspect of my life, which was somewhat unknown. And me, I'm just like all about just being in the ocean and pushing myself. And like, I just love my sport. So I naturally stay very driven. And so, yeah, we set out to make a short film. And then, long story short, we made the feature length documentary because we felt like so many aspects of my life hadn't been shared fully. And I loved Soul Surfer, but it was also not me, it was actors, and it didn't really capture, like kind of the meat and heart of like doing it all with one arm after I lost my arm. It kind of stopped a year after I lost my arm. So,
Yeah, and amazing and such a cool part of this film is the fact that I feel like your parents have been taping since the beginning.
oh my
And
gosh,
so you have
yeah.
so much, yeah, you have so much home footage that I feel like I really just followed you along since you were a little kid. It was incredible.
Yeah, my mom and dad were so on it. And actually, my brothers were as well. Like, we're just kind of that sort of family ever since day one. And my older brother is a photographer, my middle brother is a videographer, and then my mom and dad were just always filming stuff. I guess they just loved it. And so there's definitely an immense amount of just childhood footage that is so cute. It's so hard to narrow it down in the editing room. Not that I didn't spend too much time, but the editors were just like blown away by how much footage we had from my
They're
childhood.
like, thanks a lot, guys. No, it turned out so well.
Thank you.
Well, so I laughed in the beginning because and this is just one, like in all caps, I'm saying one of the challenges you took on was this big wave called Jaws. And I mean, I'm going to go ahead and just like state the obvious connection and the irony of that wave. You basically set out to surf a wave not only named after a shark, but named after like the world's scariest shark. So,
Yeah.
what makes that wave so crazy?
Well, the wave's size and power is incredible. There's not a lot of waves like it. It's one of its own kind, and I was surfing waves bigger than my house. So, yeah, just to give you a picture, and like, cars could fit inside these waves, and just the power that they have is, yeah, absolutely incredible. It's kind of like one of the wonders of the world, I would say. Um, and I've always kind of had this like dream to ride some of these waves. I've always been like very driven to like push myself in crazy surf and big and scary stuff. So, yeah, when it finally came true, it was a dream for me.
Well, it looked absolutely terrifying. So I'd love to say that looks like a dream to me, but I was like holding my breath the whole time. Not that I've done it. I was holding my breath watching.
And speaking of holding my breath, I had like a lifetime of preparation for that, So, and I can hold my breath for as long as 4 minutes. So I'm just one of those kind of like odd humans, so to say, that just loves like extra challenging stuff.
So you were born for this stuff. Now, tell me this. I'm going to act like I know how to talk surfing for just a minute. Clearly I don't, but you took that wave on in two ways, right? So the first is you had a jet ski pull you in, and then you also paddled into the wave, just using your arm, basically.
Yes.
Yeah. So what's the difference for paddle surfing? Why was that such a big deal on Jaws?
Yeah, so Jaws, like a lot of people have started paddling it a lot more in the last 10 years, whereas like 25 years ago, nobody was really paddling it because of its just speed and power. And it's hard for a human to get themselves onto the wave, whereas the jet ski assist is like kind of like you use the ski lift to get up the mountain rather than climbing it, climbing the mountain. So you kind of use the jet ski to get you onto the wave rather than paddling it. But so paddling it is definitely a lot harder. And so I had set my mind out after I jet ski towed into it, I set my mind to paddle into it because I had definitely had this feeling of like, I've heard people say like things like, oh, that would be way too hard for you. And I guess I'm up for a challenge. So paddling it was for sure one of the scariest endeavors of my entire life. Just the amount of power and force these waves have is like nothing else. So, and I got pounded and I had my tumbles and but it was also really amazing.
Okay, so to give a little more context too to just how dangerous this wave is and and what you were doing, you literally had like ambulances on call, right? I mean, that's how sketchy this was.
Like in Hawaii, it's a small island. I think they just kind of like call up the ambulance and be like, hey, there's a bunch of people surfing Jaws today, so be on call just in case someone gets hurt. Because, of course, like you want to be smart and wise when you're going into those situations. You don't want to just be too nonchalant about it. And so, I mean, we have a full safety team ready to go for if anyone gets hurt while surfing out there. And it's just it's a high risk sort of situation, but it's also very rewarding when you get an incredible ride out there.
Well, I love what your mom said about the whole thing in the beginning of the film. So before it had happened, she said, yeah, I don't think she needs to do that. And I just laughed because that's spoken like a true mom, where we're like, yeah, that's cool and everything, but I don't think she should probably throw her body at that thing.
Yeah, I know. My mom's so cute.
Okay, so speaking of moms, I need to toss this out. In the film, we see when you find out, surprised that you're pregnant, you're navigating life as a new mom and literally competing in surf competitions while you're nursing every 2 hours. Like, I mean, there are feats of physical strength in this movie that blow me away, just like seeing your workouts and some of the stuff you do. But when you layer on having a baby and being a first time mom on top of that, it takes things to a whole other level. So talk to me, how was the adjustment to motherhood for you?
Oh, it was beautiful and amazing, but so incredibly challenging. I think ignorance was bliss. I was like, yeah, I'll probably still be able to compete and surf after. So I just kind of set my mind to that and had that as the plan. Um, but then I didn't realize how hard it was going to be. And I think the hardest part for me is definitely like the sleeplessness. I thrive on a good night's of sleep. So kind of adjusting to not sleeping very much and still trying to perform at a high level and in surfing and competition felt really hard. But you kind of just have to like push past it, I guess. But yeah, entering into motherhood didn't feel easy and it didn't feel like it just came to me really simply. But yeah, with time I slowly adjusted and also on top of that, my little guy was severely colicky. So the first 3 months was kind of like, there was no like kind of beauty. It didn't feel beautiful. It felt just hard and frustrating and challenging, and just having a crying baby all day, all night, and taking turns with my husband felt like, yeah, we were just hanging in there, you know?
Oh, it is feats of mental and emotional endurance.
Yeah, so on top of that, trying to get back into shape and get back into surfing is just like kind of a lot. So definitely my second son felt I had gave myself a lot more wiggle room and grace time.
Well, and my theory on baby number 2 is that baby number 1 rocks your whole world and you make a ton of big changes.
Yeah.
And then you kind of fear the second one so much, right? But you've already made all those big changes. So for me, the second one felt actually easier than the first because you'd made those major adjustments. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, and you definitely had like a better kind of expectation set, and you kind of knew what to expect. Plus, you were already like kind of not a pro, but you're like, you got it down a little bit. But even my second one was colicky too. So at least we were prepared for that. We were hoping he wouldn't be, but he was. So
Oh,
I'm guessing it was all the antibiotics I had as a child that kind of jacked up my system and therefore maybe caused. But there's also a lot of unknowns on colic. So who knows?
yeah. Oh, little Betty's colic is so hard.
Yes.
Well, let's talk about you growing up for a minute. Speaking of your mom, that I mentioned, she was a surfer too, and so was your dad, right?
Yes. Yeah, so they both moved out to Hawaii from the US just chasing their love for surfing, and then that's where they met each other and then got married and had my two older brothers and I and shared their love for surfing. And yeah, it's definitely a fun story they had.
Now, what was life like at your house when you were a little kid?
Yeah, well, my parents worked really hard. I don't know if we were low income, we might have been. My dad was always working at least two jobs at a time. In Hawaii, it's really expensive to live. So they worked really hard, and my mom was working as well. And yeah, but they always kept their love for the ocean a priority. So we were always at the beach, and they also raised me in the Christian faith, which was wonderful. And the two kind of like combination of their greatest passions. Yeah, just spending a lot of time in the ocean, which is like God's free playground, was so fun. And yeah, it was a simple lifestyle of just beach and working and school. And yeah, they were very involved in my life too, and super encouraging, supportive parents.
Well, I ask this question of every guest, and as always, it's a nod to the movie Ratatouille, the smell or the taste that takes you back to childhood. So, what is your Ratatouille? What is the smell or the taste or the sight or the sense that just takes you straight back to being a kid in that magical little life?
I would say there's a few things, but like body surfing, like just swimming in the ocean and catching waves with your body. My dad would always do that with me. So that kind of feels like childhood. And then on the like specifically on food, raviolis. Always like anytime I see raviolis or think of raviolis or eat them, it just reminds me of childhood because we ate raviolis a lot. My dad's from New Jersey, so Italian food was his favorite. And so, yeah, specifically that.
Do you make ravioli for your boys?
Occasionally. I'm like a super health foodie, so
And ravioli doesn't quite make that cut.
no, like they're kind of like a twice a year sort of a thing.
I love it.
But yeah.
Okay, so we just got back from California and we hit the beach pretty much every day. We're not surfers. Like I got a couple skim boarders. We make our way out there. But we live in Utah in the mountains. So really we get to the beach like once a year or every other year.
Yeah.
Um, so it can be pretty overwhelming for my kids to get out there. And it takes a lot of pep talk. My middle one, it took a lot of pep talk. I'm not going to lie. I might have thrown some bribes in there just for her to go out into the ocean.
Oh, yeah. We all bribe at one point or another, or at least most of us normal moms.
Totally. I'm not above it. So there's a point in the film where you mentioned that I think at age 6 or 7, your parents were pushing you into the waves. And I actually think this is such a great parenting analogy in an era where we want to save our kids from everything, especially big challenges. What does it mean to you to push our kids into the waves?
Oh, yeah. Well, to me, I mean, I have an alternative reason. I want to be surfing till I'm old and I want my kids to be in the ocean with me. So I'm like trying to like nudge them in the direction to fall in love with riding waves so that we can have that quality time together. Surfing is one of those things that like you'll have to be present. Like you can't be anywhere else. You can't be on your phone. You can't really like there's no distractions out there. There's just enjoying God's creation and doing nothing but just chilling and waiting for your next wave and then riding the wave when it comes. So it's a really like beautiful thing that like if you have a lot of stress going on, you can go out there and just have some peace and quiet and time to ponder and just enjoy that moment. So I hope my boys will do the same and really have that love for riding waves and being out in the ocean. And on the subject of challenge, like I think it's so important for I definitely my first boy I coddled probably a little more than I should have. Whereas my second one, I'm like, no, you climb up on that chair on your own. um, and he is like, you can see it. He's super resilient and like he'll like problem solve super fast. And I'm like, okay, that's like amazing that he's a year and 4 months and he just realized that his plastic bin couldn't fit that way. So he turned around and went around the other way. Um, so I think like enabling them to deal with challenges and, problem solve on their own is really important. And we're not really helping them when we coddle too much and like, do everything for them and try to protect them from every little challenge that comes their way.
Well, so I'm going to take this analogy even one step deeper because you mentioned your faith a lot, and I think in our challenges we think about God a lot and the whys and all that good stuff. Do you think that God ever pushes us into waves, almost in that parent role? As you look at some of the challenges you've had, can you feel Him behind you?
Yeah, well, I mean, I look at the time when I lost my arm as a 13-year-old girl, and I believed in God at that time, and I was confident as a young 13-year-old girl. I knew that God had a plan for my life, and you could have viewed that situation and been angry at God, but I felt thankful that I was alive, and I believed that God had more for my life beyond then. So I just trusted that He was in control of the situation, and so much good and beauty and positive things have come from the loss of my arm. And so what? I have to live life with one arm, and there's a lot more challenges that I may face on a day-to-day basis. But the amount of good that came out of all that and what seems like such an awful thing is so incredible that I just think that God had a better plan than I did. And the loss of my arm was just a speed bump along the way that brought so much good and beauty to life.
You're listening to the Today's Mama podcast with your host, Rachel Hersher. We'll be back right after this.
If you're enjoying this topic today, might I recommend a few others from the archives? Check out episode 36 with Dr. Ellie Leibowitz on helping our kids face their fears and anxieties. That interview is like the best therapy you never had to pay for. I think you'll also love episode 15 with Debbie Reber on raising differently wired kids, optimism, and the word instead. And because we're talking about our bodies and doing amazing things, be sure you catch episodes 28 and 29 with Stacia Savasic on our amazing bodies and our inherent ability to hate them. We talk about what's behind that and getting to the place of loving our bodies and their amazingness and their imperfections. That's a 2-part episode, and you're going to want to make sure you catch both of them. I think that should keep you busy for a while. You can find links to those and more at todaysmama.com/podcast.
And now back to the Today's Mama podcast with your host, Rachel Hersher.
So I've often read that one of the characteristics of resilient people is that they make and find meaning in everything, especially the hard stuff. So what I found really interesting is that some of your coaches and people who watched you surf early in life have said things like she was catching any wave she wanted with those arms, and that you could paddle like a demon. And it sounds like your arms were your superpowers. Right. And then you lost one, and then you totally lost one. And so have you ever been mad at God about that? And how did you get through it? Because those are, I think a lot of people, whatever loss they're dealing with in their life, I think most people have found times when they get mad. And what did you do about that?
Okay, well, I must say, at least I have one super arm. Like, imagine if I had 2 subpar arms and then I lost one of my subpar arms and then I only had one subpar arm, but at least I have one super arm. I'm like super long, super strong. I'm almost 6 feet tall and my arm is just like, it's a good arm.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I think there is a time of question and more like a feeling of like, oh my gosh, my life is upside down. Like, I don't know what my future looks like. And this feels really hard right now. But I think I just tended to lean towards more of like being thankful that I was alive. I lost over 60% of my blood and I could have easily died that day. But like my dad, he really struggled with anger at God. He just could not understand why God would allow something so terrible to happen to his daughter. But I often nowadays refer to this verse in the Bible. It's in this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. And it's not that like God says life's going to be perfect and easy and that we are going to breeze through it. Like there's trouble in the world, there's pain, there's awful things that happen to all of us at one point or another. So kind of being prepared and ready for that and being just know that it's going to come, but you can overcome it if you approach it with a thankful heart, I guess. And you know what? I know that I'm not even halfway through my life. So I know there's going to be a lot more pain to come my way. And just because I lost my arm doesn't mean there's not more coming. Like the chances are something awful is going to happen. But I just try not to live my life in fear or just get carried away with the what ifs,
The hard things always aren't something so huge like a shark attack. Like as I watched your film, I saw challenges that you took on that felt as big as a shark attack to me in terms of how hard you worked to overcome and to accomplish what you wanted to accomplish. So
I just think too, like motherhood is being a parent is so hard. It's like nonstop, day after day. And as rewarding and beautiful as it is, the consistency you have to carry yourself with and the patience you have to have. And it is so incredibly challenging. I'm like, cheers to all the parents out there doing their best and being just spot on with the day to day and the monotony of it. And just, it's so hard. Like, and I love being a mom. I really do love it. But I'm like, wow, anytime I meet a mom of like 4 or more kids or a dad of 4 or more kids, I'm just like, oh my gosh, you guys are incredible. Like, I feel like 2 is like, oh.
Oh, dude, you're like, you haven't slept in 20 years.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm like the sleep aspect. My sister-in-law, like she can kind of get through the night without like much sleep, whereas I'm like I just felt like I got hit by a train. I slept like nothing last night, even though I like was actually in bed for 8 hours, but it was like 8 intermittent hours where the baby was waking up at least twice. But everyone's affected differently and handles like sleep and whatnot differently. So being patient with ourselves and like knowing that, like the whole comparison thing, like I am different from my sister-in-law. She can handle no sleep, whereas my other sister-in-law, she's just like naps whenever she wants to and is like just in cruise control because she has 4 kids. And I'm like, go, go, go. Like, I don't know. We're all different.
Okay, so faith has been a huge thread in all that you do, and it really comes out in the film as well. So we actually see how often you pray before jumping in the water. And there's even a clip when you were a kid, years before the shark attack happened, when your mom asked you on one of these home videos, "Are you concerned about sharks at all?" And your answer was yes. And the follow-up question was, "How do you deal with it?" And you, as just this cute little kid, you just said, "Just pray." So, how has prayer helped you become unstoppable?
Oh, yeah. I mean, anytime anything like makes me feel worried or concerned, I'm just always lifting things up in prayer and asking God to help me deal with this situation. And I think too now as a mom, it's hard not to get carried away and worrying about your kids and their future and what they're gonna be like and how they're gonna deal with this crazy world. So I'm often praying about it and just asking God, like, okay, help me to be a wise mama and help them to just get a good gauge on the world and make good decisions. And yeah, I mean, my boys are so young, but I think about the teenage years a lot. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, this world's crazy.
So, my kids, as of today, are 16, 15, and 10. And when they were toddlers, I thought about the future in the same way. I would always be saying in my head, "Oh my gosh, what about when they're teenagers?" And some really wise couple in my neighborhood stopped me once and said, "I want you to know that teenagers are the best and funnest years of everything." And
Oh,
early on, I changed my mind and I thought, okay, I'm not going to dread those years. I'm going to look forward to them because they're going to be awesome. And I will tell you, these teenage years have been the best and the funnest years that we've had. And I loved my little babies. And I would
yeah.
still shrink them back if I could, but they're fun and they're good. And I think
That's so
kids are actually
exciting.
better today than we give them credit for. But
Yeah.
there's hope in teenagers.
Yeah. No, I mean, I totally look forward to it. Yeah, just finding, I think probably for me, I think about just balancing medias and stuff like that and just hope they choose good friends. I had the most amazing group of friends as a teenager that just led me to make the best decisions and just to have pure fun, childlike fun. Like we were always just adventuring around. We lived a teenage life. Like we had the most fun. And I'm so glad that we didn't have iPhones back then because I look at the teenagers now and I'm like, oh my gosh, your life looks so boring. You're just sitting there on your phone. Whereas I was like diving to the bottom of the ocean, finding shells and treasures and like just having the best time.
And I think that's the parenting key right now is how do we get our kids unplugged enough that they can go have those experiences because those are
Yeah.
definitely lacking for our kids today is just getting out. And you know what a lot of it is? These kids have a lot of because they're not out there doing a lot of those things, they have a lot of I think it's one of the drivers behind this big spike in anxiety and fear.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I think, especially watching your film, I could see that you had so much independence and it gave you a lot of confidence to take on the
Mhm.
world and your environment around you. And I think that's where our kids today are lacking.
Yeah.
So actually this leads into a really great next question is you do a lot of scary things, physically scary, right? In terms of facing big
Mhm.
waves or big competitions, as well as, I think being a mom and moving through life is scary. But I once heard that fear and anxiety are very much the same energy as excitement and in anticipation.
Mm,
And it
mm.
depends on how we choose to channel it. So, how do you deal with your fear when you feel it?
Oh my goodness. You know what? I think I definitely channel it as exciting sometimes. Like, I mean, when it comes to surfing and being in the ocean, I'm not lacking fear. I have a healthy fear and kind of respect for the ocean. But I'm also like, whoa, I want to go ride that crazy wave. Like that fear almost like lures me.
Yeah.
um, so yeah, I think like it'll be interesting to see how I don't know. It's like my little 4-year-old, he went down this humongous slide the other day that like went down into the water. And I wanted him to go, and my husband didn't want him to go. And then, long story short, I was like, "Hey, can 4-year-olds go down this?" And they were like, "Oh yeah, he's all good to go as long as he has a life jacket." And then, so my husband took up our 4-year-old and got him down the slide, bribed him because once the 4-year-old got up there, he got too scared. But then he's like, "Here, you can have a piece of chocolate if you go down the slide." So yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how, like, I don't know, I deal with fear so easily, or not easily, but I just think I have a good rein on it because I've been dealing with fear since I was a child. I would put myself into like fearful situations in the ocean just for fun. So it's almost like I just continued to carry that into adulthood and always kind of like had a healthy kind of relationship with fear, so to say.
Well, and I like the way you said it's almost like you've been able to funnel fear into fun. And some people that doesn't come naturally to, but I think there's little ways that we can channel some of that. So I actually picked this up from a
Yeah.
friend and I'm going to share it here in the event that anyone out there listening is an anxious person or has a child who's
Yeah, that's
anxious.
awesome.
But so fear and anxiety or excitement, right? Build up adrenaline in your body, in anticipation of whatever's going to happen. And that can fuel anxiety. So with surfing, when you feel that fear or excitement, you go burn it up because you go take that wave and you burn up that adrenaline that your body has doing something so active. And so, one of my friends had a therapist say the best thing you can do if you're anxious or afraid is to burn up that adrenaline that you have. Use it. So, exercise, get out, do the scary thing, use it up, and get rid of it. And in that sense, I think it can become therapeutic and get us better at doing scary things. But um, so that leads me into a next question for you, which is, does it burn up emotion for you? Is it a therapeutic thing to be out there in the water?
Oh, for sure it is. It's my place of just recovery from everything on land, and I would definitely say it was complete therapy after I lost my arm. Like even though there's sharks in the ocean, like the ocean helped me heal and grow and kind of deal with all the uncertainty I had in my mind. And yeah, especially to me, like going to a big city, we travel a lot and we'll go to big cities, and I never feel like rested or at peace. So when I get back to the ocean, I'm just like, okay, I'm at peace again and can kind of recover from the chaos of city life and travel, and or even relational stuff. Like sometimes when I just can't figure out how to deal with the situation, I'll go in the ocean and just it's a place to kind of have clear thought. But for sure, like getting the adrenaline out, I'm a total adrenaline junkie, so I need my time to like, yeah, get it out of me.
Now, for those of us who can't like take a huge wave, you can also feel like a bit of an adrenaline rush from going on a run or a hike, right? Like
Yeah.
I would say that's one of the things that will help our kids deal with their anxiety in a big way, even if they can't catch the big waves. But what I love is that they have a role model. You're a huge role model and have been to my own kids. And I can't tell you how many people have messaged since I posted before this interview even happened that we would be chatting with you. What an influence for good you've been in their lives. So it's nice in this big, messy world to be able to point our kids to people like you. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
So another cool thing is you actually have some words of advice for people as well. You have got an online course. I'll literally be signing up myself. It's called the Unstoppable Year course. Like, what will people find in the Unstoppable Year?
Yeah, so the unstoppable year to me, I've been in this state of kind of being inspirational for so long that I wanted to do more than just be inspirational, but actually help equip people and yeah, just dig deeper into life with especially young people. I have a heart for like teenagers and especially teenage girls. And yeah, I think that there's so much that I can share and kind of give. And so with the Unstoppable Year is it's simply like kind of like to put it quickly, it's to help people live their unstoppable life. So with throughout the year I'll be talking about 12 different subjects like forgiveness, being present, overcoming obstacles, dealing with comparison, finding your passion, anchoring yourself in your identity, setting goals, training our mind, deepen friendships, all these different things, and even going into health a bit because I'm super passionate about health. So these are just some of the subjects we'll be talking about, and yeah, and if I'm not like a complete expert, I have like experts coming in too to just give us words of wisdom, and it'll be definitely hopefully a time of growth for everyone, including myself. Like I'm really excited to just yeah, when you're sharing advice with other people, I think it even helps you to think deeper and grow. Even just so far before we even started the year, like wow, I feel like I'm growing so much.
Well, and you've got a pretty amazing lineup of guests that are helping with that course. So who are some of the other people that we'd hear from in the course?
Yeah, so some of the people I'll bring in, well, definitely going to have some of my closest friends, of people that I trust and I've grown and learned a lot from. My friend Sarah Hill, she's been my youth leader since I was a young girl, and now she's just my good friend. And Nick Vojicic, I always can't say his name, even though I've known him for like 10 years now, but he lives his life with no limbs, and he's absolutely incredible. And he's a motivational speaker, and he's just overcome so much. He is on another level as far as human beings who are amazing. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Now, if people want to sign up for those courses, where do they go?
You can head to my website, bethanyhamilton.com, and there will be all the information there.
Okay, now, of course, everyone should be grabbing their whole family and going to see the film Unstoppable. Where is that film available and how long will it be out for?
So it's in theaters now, and I think this will probably be the last week it's in theaters. And maybe down the road, we might be doing kind of like special events where you could create your own night to show Unstoppable to your local community. But until then, this is the last week you can see it. So it's definitely worth seeing on the big screen. But it's summer. I know everyone has busy schedules, so it will be somewhere at some point. I don't know where yet, but yeah, it's been an incredible journey to share my story on a deeper level.
Well, and the film really is so beautifully shot. We saw Alex Honnold's film earlier this year, Free Solo,
Yeah.
which was so gorgeous. And I felt the same way about watching Unstoppable. It was just visually amazing alongside that amazing story. So definitely worth seeing on the big screen. All right. And I know you are just like booked back to back with all the things you're working on. So we're going to let you go. But before you go, where should people follow you online if they want to keep in touch? Where's the best places to keep up with you?
Oh, yeah. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, just at Bethany Hamilton. So, but yeah, Rachel, it's been so lovely talking with you. And thanks to everyone for listening in.
Oh, and thank you so much for sharing your life and your time with us today.
Aloha.
Parting reminders. I'll have links to all of Bethany's projects and everything we talked about today in the show notes, which you can always find at todaysmama.com/podcast. Just look for episode 38 with Bethany Hamilton. We've also got todaysmama.com packed with extra features from Bethany. You'll find recipes, thoughts on motherhood, and real talk about waves as big as houses. If you've enjoyed this episode, please let us know, share with your friends, rate the podcast on whatever app you are listening on, and send us any feedback to podcast@todaysmama.com. We'd love to hear from you.
You've been listening to the Today's Mama podcast with Rachel Hersher. To find out more, go to todaysmama.com. That's todaysmama.com. Today's Mama, connecting moms and families with the best of today.